Good evening and welcome into Oye Cinema Club. Tonight we're going to be reviewing 1999's cult classic Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, directorial debut of Guy Ritchie. It stars Nick Moran, Jason Statham, Jason Flemyng, Vinnie Jones, the soccer player, is in it, Lenny McLean, and Sting even makes an appearance. This film is considered a crime comedy, I would guess. I would call it. I would be interested to hear what you guys think of the genre. The film's budget was $1.3 million and it made about $28 million. Anywhere, the internet says 26 to 28 million. So it was considered a commercial success worldwide. And tonight I am not alone. I am joined by other hosts. We have Steve Diz, El Dondino, Jason Eccles, and Marina. So guys, when we jump into initial thoughts tonight, before we do that, or right after we do that, instead, I don't want to go directly into favorite character. So let's do initial thoughts, and then I have a plan for what we're going to do next. Let's kick it over to Jason.
Hello. So this is an interesting movie. I think this is one of the ones that I seen when I was in college. Not as sure how it came to me. Probably some actor in acting school or class, whatever you call it, probably like floated this movie around. I feel like it was like a group experiment my first time, because I don't think anybody who saw this at this time in my peer group had ever seen anything like it before. You know, a lot of the characters were almost unintelligible, you know what I mean, because of the accents, and you have to like really listen with a sharp ear, which sort of makes, but you know the acting is good, you know the story is strong. Never quite seen a director like this before. This is like my first experience with Guy Ritchie, and just his very cinematic touch, the way of like, you know, sort of filming and editing this thing was very like powerful and different and exciting and provocative. You know, he dealt with violence in a really strong way. I got to tell you, all of that still holds up. This movie is fantastic, and it's different and it's unique. And I'm not sure if it's his first outing, but as a young director, like this is just a really strong way to present yourself in a feature film with like some real heavy hitters in this movie. And I don't think when this thing came out, any of these guys were stars, but after this movie came out, everybody eventually saw it, and these guys became stars, and deservedly so. You know, guys like Jason Statham, he does so much of the action stuff, you know, with all the martial arts, that you forget that this dude is seriously a good actor. Yeah, this thing has a ton of funny stuff, a ton of funny scenes. It just reminds me how much I love Guy Ritchie and how I should just continue to watch his work, because in recent years I just kind of have it.
All right. Let's move over to El Dondino.
It's me, Dondino. Don't know. Definitely not my first time watching this. This takes me back. This takes me back to my childhood. One of my best friends came back from, I forget what trip overseas, from, you know, being in Paraguay, and he came back. Oh man, this is what I miss, right? I don't know about you guys, but I know small towns and I know about video clubs and, you know, Blockbuster and all that. But in Paraguay, it was even more so. Like if somebody went to like either Brazil or they would go to Miami or New Zealand or whatever, they'd come back with one or two VHS tapes, right, of just like movies. And this is one that my friend like came was like, gotta watch this. And I was like, what are you talking about? Man, there's a summer where I feel like we watched this 10 times maybe. Because again, if we didn't have cable, there was like one movie theater in the capital of Paraguay when I was a kid growing up. So like they would have like two a days, like double features, and that was about it. So if we weren't on a fishing trip in the summer or out playing or something, and there was nothing on TV, we only had two channels. It's like, what are the new cassette tapes we got? And I was like, all right, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. And it's great. And so watching it again this time, it's been a while because I do have it in DVD. I think I have 3, maybe 4 of Guy Ritchie's movies, because then I did end up watching a bunch of his movies in the theaters that came afterwards. But yeah, it just took me back, and how grainy it is. And it's like, you can tell there's certain movie directors, writers that then everyone kind of started copying, right? So you have Tarantino and even Spike Lee, and then I feel like Guy Ritchie had that gritty, like look to it, grainy film, and it had that weird slow motion kind of shot happening at the same time that I feel like after he did it, after this came out, a lot of people started doing that. And then he, did that again in Snatch with that kind of, and so, yeah, it's really well acted. It's just like such great writing also, right? Like that's something, it's not just well directed and act, but the writing is there. Like everyone has a character name, everyone has a description. There are callbacks all throughout, like the guy running out that's on fire, like like everything. It's so well constructed, and one of my favorite bits is the Nick the Greek, right? And just the guy bringing the drink, and like first time breaks the glass coffee table, second time drops it, and then the third time he comes to bring it to him, and then just like slowly steps out of the camera frame. It's like, oh, so yeah. So I love this movie. I haven't seen it. I hadn't seen it in, I don't know, it's been 10 years maybe last time I saw it. So love it. It's a great movie.
I totally agree. I feel like Guy Ritchie writes a single line at least for every person in the movie, so they get one banger in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Let's kick it over to Marina. What were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so I feel like this is definitely a guy movie. It gives me like British Pulp Fiction, British Big Lebowski vibes, where I feel like a lot of men probably have memories when they were younger watching. I'd never even heard of this movie before. It initially started off with like a lot going on, but eventually I could kind of like figure out like how everyone's connected, which is something that I really like about a movie. If there's like a lot of ongoing plots, a lot of like vantage points. But yeah, it was very, very bro-y, or I don't know if they have a word over there for bro, but I was just like, okay, all right, this is gonna be about these guys and their bond and them scheming together. But yeah, overall, when I initially watched it, I was like, okay, like and I always like a movie where someone has kind of lost and they're trying to win back. I always like that concept. Like, how are they going to get out of this rut?
I mean, it's not Uncut Gems, but yeah.
It wasn't as bad, but then again, we didn't know how much money they were in the hole, so it could have been just as bad. So
That's true in Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
Steve, what was your first impression?
First impression. So first time ever watching this movie. I'm not gonna lie. At the very beginning, I was kind of lost because I didn't watch it with subtitles or anything. And what took me in, like really put me into the movie, was when I first heard, I think it's called The Boss, from James Brown. I Get Down. When that hit, I was like, oof. I'm like into the movie. Like, this movie had like really good score, like really good music. And then what took me out was the dude, like the little chubby dude with the Jerry curl. Because I was like, I was like, that has to be fake. But I love that, like in his arc, like progressively, you just see the Jerry curl get progressively bad. Like it's amazing. To the point that he got shot and like, he had like on the middle, like the silliness of that part. And I love that part of the movie. Like the movie wasn't too action. It was like it had its silly moment. And I enjoy that because like it gives like that breather. I really enjoyed progressively right before he got killed, the black character boss dude.
Yeah.
The other one with the Jerry curl. Uh,
That's who I
and
thought you were talking about the whole time.
oh no, no, no!
Until he said got shot, but yeah,
Yeah.
I was
No,
gonna
when he
say
said
that's a
chubby.
Jerry curl. The other guy is a fro. I don't see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
no.
I
At
mean
first,
with my straight hair,
when
I
he
should have.
when he first appears in scene, he has it all wet and everything, and I was like, that has to be fake. Like I was just like out of the movie. I was like, yo, that Jerry curl has to be fake, and then progressively got bad. I love that they used the whole like cage thing, going back to Uncle Jams, that they get left in a cage situation. That was cool. I really enjoyed. That's something that I noticed a lot. I enjoyed the like how they were lighting them. Because for example, the really bad characters had like very dark shadows, or you could see only half of their face. So I was noticing that a lot in the movie, and I also enjoyed like the play, like the first half of the movie. At least for me, I guess I got to rewatch it for me to like really get into it. But the second half of the movie got me hooked with like the game of like hot potato that they were all playing, and like how karma was chasing all these people and they were getting killed. Like that was so cool. But yeah, that's my first impressions.
Noise.
For me, this was a guy ends up owing money to the mob movie, and there's all kinds of those. There's, every Martin Scorsese movie, there's like Rounders. You got Han Solo owes Jabba money. Like in all these movies, there's always like, or a lot of these heist type movies where they have to get the money to try and pay them off. And I just think that the twists and the dialogue really added to it. It is his first movie. He definitely did it with a yellow lens. Like he purposely made the movie seem yellow, which is kind of too soon if you've been living through the Canadian wildfire nonsense. But it definitely, the feel of the movie definitely is different, a little gritty there. And for me, man, yeah, I don't know. It definitely is a movie I think of college. In 1999, I was like mid-college, so about 20 years old, 22. I'm old. But it did definitely something that I watched with friends. You're right. 100% Marina. It is a guy's flick for sure. The only woman that I can think of that plays in the movie is Gloria on the couch. You guys remember her? The girl that fell asleep.
How can you forget?
Yeah.
She steals the movie.
It's amazing. So for me, I think what I wanted to say before I say it at the beginning is I don't want to jump right into favorite character. I think a spin on that would be if you could join one of those gangs, because they are in gangs the entire movie. Which gang of people do you think that you would either most fit into or feel the safest in or are the funniest?
Well,
Anybody
I mean,
have
there's different, right? If it's for the funniest or the us
Who you picking?
schlubs, right? Like of our level of badassery, I guess, if you will. I would imagine I'd be with the stoners just because it's like, why, like, not that that's who I would want to be with, but I feel like that's like what I would fit in.
That's
Although
where we would put you.
Gang that doesn't die for 300, please.
I know, right?
They're all died. So our little makeshift gang of guys that were the main characters, I'd want to be on their team because they miraculously survived all that.
I want to second that notion and go for the main characters. I want to be in their gang.
Hey, I'd love to be Vinny's son. That's
Little Chris.
Yeah, little Chris.
Because that's, for me, that's the gang, man. If I had to pick somebody to like defend me, it's definitely Barry the Blade or whatever his name is, or Benny the Butcher. Is that his name? And then
Benny the
Hatchet Harry and Chris, because those guys are one gang. Like Big Chris is his henchman, essentially, right?
Yeah,
he's like his fixer. So like to me, that's the baddest group of But of course, the only gang that actually makes it out alive is the original group of four.
And like the one stoner dude or a couple of the stoner guys survive,
minus some toes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They did.
The one I would say though is I wouldn't mind be under Sting as well. I mean, we didn't bring that up with characters, but Sting is in the movie. and has a slightly bigger role than what I thought he would. And there's
Yeah, it's not a
something
cameo.
shady with him, right? Like he's not just a bar owner. Like he also has some sort of thing going underneath him. But
He's the one that Vinny worked for, or
he's
He was the bar
dad.
owner. He was the
Yeah,
dad,
and the dad of the gambler.
the main character.
oh, okay, I missed that.
And it's Sting. I don't know if you if you
Yeah,
know what
I'm
Sting
not gonna lie. When you guys said Sting made an appearance, I was like, oh, yeah, I know exactly who you met when you said it, but when I watched it, I did not notice that.
Yeah, he's the dad of the main character, the one that they're like, we're gonna kill your son, and he's like, oh, well, go for it, man. Like, I'm not giving up my bar.
Yeah.
Anybody have a favorite scene? Because I definitely do. Anybody want to drop in on a favorite scene?
Yeah, man. My favorite scene is when it's the first time we see the weird slow motion thing in the running, because I had never seen that in a movie before.
Oh, that's at the very beginning, then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of want to know where I wanted to say when that happened. It's like, and you kind of want to know how I got here. You know, those like that kind of moment.
For sure.
I just thought
that's exactly the moment, and but it feels like, for me, it's like that sort of encapsulates the whole movie, because it's like we're about to go on a kind of a special ride right now.
Where is that from?
I have no idea.
Some after school special type of vibe, some 80s movie maybe.
The running with the slow motion?
No. The one that's
intro, like, you're probably wondering how I
Jesus.
got here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, probably some
The
like
Wonder
80s
Years, like over
story.
narration, and
Yeah.
Daniel Stern. Yeah, even the monologue right there, that's right before that scene with Jason Statham at the beginning when he's talking, he's like selling the stolen goods.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was awesome too. It's a great way to open a film.
The use of the narration, for sure, especially because then you realize that was his buddy, right? Like they were working team of trying to bring it up. Favorite scenes. It's usually what Guy Ritchie does really well. I'm trying to think what it was specifically in this one, but when someone has a nickname and then someone is like stupid enough to like ask what the name is, kind of like what is it? In Snatch? It's Boris the Bullet Dodger.
Boris the Blade, yeah.
Boris the Blade is like, why is he bullet dodger? It's like, because he dodges bullets. So this one, it's Ari Hatchet, but I can't remember what other ones they have. But those are that kind of dialogue back and forth, which is very, I don't know if because it's British, it's very cheeky, or at least that's what it seems like to me. Some of those dialogue cheeky scenes are, kind of my favorite part.
Shotguns? You mean like guns that fire shots? Like things like that, little tiny dialogue gems.
Or the chef, like all of a sudden he's like, blades. It's like, this is to threaten them, and this is whatever. It's like, and of course the dude's joking, and it's like, oh, you have something bigger maybe, and he's like, what? And he takes out this like giant machete, and like as the movie progresses, everyone's kind of like, should we be worried? Like, yeah, those kind of moments or beats are when they keep calling back small little things is, I guess, my favorite kind of parts of it for sure.
No, when the dude gets like really mad and he's like smacking around his own henchman, and then he throws. They add that extra scene that he throws him into a wall, and then you see like real quick that they were bugging the place.
Yep. It's a pretty good one, especially since it was like search the whole place for bugs, which they did, and then it's like, how stupid are you? Like, you're gonna rob your neighbors, you were recording everything, and then you leave all the recording shit in the in the little closet. It was, yeah. And one thing that I don't know if I realized until watching it just this time, or at least it popped out this time, they commented. So the main guys, the protagonists, commented on how the neighbor gang that was going to go rob the dispensary, or not the dope guys, I guess, the farmers, that they all had like matching trench coats or something, and they're like, "Oh, that's a cool look. Like, we should get some of those." Like, I didn't realize that before, that they made a comment about like, "Yeah, we should all dress up alike, and we can look tougher that way." Yeah, so I noticed that being a thing as well.
And the ski masks, like that, they didn't even think about disguising themselves up to that one point.
Yeah.
So Soap says, something about disguise,
Like,
because like they're your neighbor.
That's pretty funny. And the guy at the beginning with the jerry curl said, "Hey, where is our buddy, our pal? Where is it? You got yeah, he is part of Oye Cinema Club, don't you think? That's our own member is in the movie."
Oh,
I could totally.
Well, so you're talking about how bad it looked, and he says like, "I'm not putting anything over my head. I just paid, I don't know what it was, like 450 pounds or 250 pounds on it." And so, did he have a sock tied, just covering like his nose, like
a stocking?
Yeah, small things like that just makes it so entertaining, because it just lets you know like how. I love the use of Muppets as it's a very British or gay kind of thing, huh? Because in Ted Lasso they also say a lot. I feel like, don't be a Muppet. Like,
I don't care who you use, as long
not
as they're not complete Muppets.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
My favorite scene was when they were like, "We got to get rid of the guns so it doesn't tie us to the investigation." And then while he was getting rid of them, they like looked up how much the guns were worth, and they were all trying to call him, like, but they didn't know his number. It was just kind of silly, like them trying to retrieve these guns, and he threw them over, and then they didn't land. Like, it was just, yeah. I don't know if like it felt like that might not been something that they originally wrote, and they just added it in, like, let's be silly at the end now that we're all okay. But I liked that.
Yeah, the film bounce, twist the whole time. That's one of the things that script is written by Guy Ritchie. It's casted by Guy Ritchie, which is interesting because a lot of the actors are not trained actors.
Right.
Lenny McLean is like a famous bare knuckle boxing champion. He's the older the not complete Muppets guy.
And that dude got a huge career from this movie, didn't he?
Well, Vinnie Jones did. That's the other. That's a soccer player. He's a professional.
That guy passed away before the movie came out. So at the very end of the movie, it says,
There's a callback to him.
Lenny. Yeah. He was only in like, he, I guess, did bare knuckle fighting and illegal fights. So like was part of, I guess, that seedy almost world, which it seems
he felt very authentic.
Yeah. Not the priest, the Baptist.
The Baptist. That's it.
Yeah. The drowning, the Baptist, like that kind of stuff. Just is so funny,
That's
man.
Great,
No, he was dead. Aww.
Yeah,
I really, for some reason, I really enjoyed, and this is like weird for me to even say because I never had this thought in any movie that I watched of this magnitude, but I really enjoyed the deaths sometimes in this film because, for example, I laughed out loud when I saw like the big black guy killed and he was still holding his gun.
And the smoke was coming out of it.
Yeah. And then when the last guy with the jerry curl turns the other guy around and he ready to shoot him. Boom. And then the other guy with the jerry curl when he's like about to avenge his friend with the little guns.
Yeah.
And then he's like, What are you doing here? What are you doing here? They shoot each other.
Yeah, those guys are very funny.
That reminds me of well, not really. There was like a Key and Peele skit about like Vinny's birthday and like a gangster, and he comes in for a surprise. He doesn't know it's a surprise, so he shoots everybody in, in the room for sneaking up on him. Yeah, that's pretty. Never mind. Yeah, I was gonna actually originally say all the death scenes was my favorite, but it's just so long. Like, but yeah, it was just like
You know what this movie feels like? It feels like it was written as a graphic novel or something.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The music plays such a role in this movie. And my favorite scene is the one where they're in the jail, like in the cage, and they first go in and he's like, they're trying to hold up the place and they start getting shot, and the main guy goes, "Can everybody please stop getting shot?" And they're all just standing there and they're like, "Oh, I got shot in the neck." That was my favorite scene in the movie. There's so many comedic things like that, but the whole movie, I feel like the music plays a huge role because build. It was actually released, the album, the soundtrack was released by Madonna, like her record company, because they were married at one point. Guy Ritchie and Madonna.
I think it was after this. Maybe?
It was, but
maybe
somehow they must have had a connection pre that.
I mean,
their marriage.
I thought Guy Ritchie was doing like music videos before. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I think you're right.
Wait, I thought Madonna was a virgin.
Well,
no, she was like a virgin.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Madonna, she's in the ICU, so get better, Madonna.
Yeah.
She's in the ICU?
Yeah, I guess they found her collapse a couple days ago, unresponsive or something like that. But
oh my god!
Yeah. The last thing I saw was that she's gonna make it's gonna be full recovery, but nothing came out yet of what. Oh, a bacterial infection. That's what they said. A bacterial infection. So. But yeah, the music, it's its own character. The film, which again, like that yellow tint, I don't know, is that on purpose for a choice? Is it on purpose because it's cheap to do that way? Like the I
was wondering about that too.
He credits it to trying to make it look spontaneous, like that it wasn't something that was real crisp. And I mean, that's what he says. I don't know if that's actually, what he went with. And it changes no matter what. A lot of the movies in the day, but it feels like a dark movie.
There's a lot of shadows. There's a lot of shadow play in this movie, and it's pretty intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only scenes I can think of at night are the last scene, like when they're getting rid of the guns, and the poker night where they're at the poker game. Other than that, most of the scenes are during the day.
It kind of feels like a black and white movie sometimes.
It does, definitely. That's what I was going to ask next is, what does this movie, what have you seen other than this that you think this may have influenced? Clearly Snatch, right? I mean, it's very similar in the storyline, has like a very similar feel of twists and things like that. But that's a Guy Ritchie movie. Is there anything else you've seen where you're like, this kind of reminds me of that? Because I couldn't really think of anything. I've seen a lot of movies like that, that have this setup of the mob and somebody owing money and stuff, but I couldn't really link anything together with it.
Probably.
I feel like there's a lot of movies that came out around that time that were trying to do this. So like a few years after this came out, there were certain movies like where everybody was trying to play the twists and turns with the mobsters. Right. So it was movies like Lucky Number 11.
Okay.
Yeah. Was there Ryan Phillippe one maybe? And was that shortly after this?
Yeah, you're thinking about Way of the Gun, and I could see how there could be a little bit of a linky link to that, the criminal sort of element, smart dialogue sort of thing.
Lucky Number 11 was like hokey in a different way. Like it didn't use music a whole lot in the film. It was more like weird things would happen as they were going through a serious situation. Like that was definitely a different kind of film.
But I think they were like sort of perfect from the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah, large ensembles. What was that movie called? It was like Ace of Spades or something like that.
Yeah.
It was
Smoking Aces.
Smoking Aces. What was it called? Smoking Aces. Yeah, it's like, I feel like there's a lot of movies like that that just sort of failed trying to be this as well.
Yeah.
Even like what I said, it reminds me of in general, and I don't know which one came out first, but it kind of does give me like that Pulp Fiction vibe. Not necessarily the same plot, but several stories happening at once and all connecting at some point.
Without a doubt, Guy Ritchie is influenced by Tarantino. Without a doubt.
Yeah. Because that came before also. Now the difference with, I think, between the two of them is Tarantino plays way more with like the structure, like non-linear, right? Because he's got like this different moments, and the humor is slightly different for sure. But there's definitely, I think, Guy Ritchie, somehow affected by Tarantino, but it's its own spin, if that kind of makes sense as well, right? Because it's like finding his own kind of voice. Because in all those movies, and like the use of the MacGuffin, and like not really, but it is, but not the whole story. And so it's like the guns are a MacGuffin, but then it's also like one, so one group is after the MacGuffin, the other group just owes money, but they're intertwined. The idea of, like you said, just the guns that are in the thing, right? Everything that's outside we got to keep. Like something that, like what do we do with antiques? Like that's all the,
Dude, how about the scene where he's holding the gun and he blows the smoke up the barrel of the gun? I was like, that's a pretty damn cool scene too.
Mm-hmm.
It is a movie. If you have not seen Snatch, it's not like a sequel to this movie or anything. It has very similar vibes, but if you haven't seen that, it definitely has. It's like Hollywood gave him a lot of money and he made a similar movie with an all-star cast. It's got Benicio del Toro, Brad Pitt. It has Jason Statham's in it again.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is in it? A lot of the same characters float through. Like, and that's the thing. Like, where have you seen these characters before? You guys notice anything? Is there anybody in this that you're like, do I know them from somewhere else?
Are you saying actors or characters?
Actors.
Okay, you said, I mean,
and Flemyng and some stuff.
Yeah, because I spent time going down the IMDb hole, and Jason Flemyng is the singer before Marky Mark in Rockstar. He's the lead singer of the Steel Dragon. Did you guys ever see that Rockstar with Jennifer Aniston and Marky Mark? I'm going to call him Marky Mark. I'm sorry, Marky Mark.
I mean, years ago, I wouldn't.
Yes, that movie was dope. I liked that movie a lot.
It was like the worst acting, which made it amazing. Like it was purposely the worst acting. Like it was totally purposeful that he was that bad. It was great.
I love the story. I thought it was terrific.
So he plays Bobby Beers. I looked it up, Jason Flemyng, and he's been in a bunch of stuff. He was on Last Kingdom. He's been in a couple other movies. But the one that shocked me, any of you guys watch Harry Potter movies?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't finish them, but yeah.
So one of the final Harry Potter movies, the main character, Nick Moran, he's Eddie, the poker player. He is in the Deathly Hallows movie. He's like this ruffian who tries to rob Harry Potter and Hermione in the woods. And I definitely did not notice. I've never seen him in anything else that I knew. But when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that's the same guy.
Those are the last two movies I didn't watch of Harry Potter. So the last movie that was split in two, I don't know if it was like, oh, you're split in two? You want my money twice? Screw you, Harry Potter.
Just
Or you didn't want it to end.
Huh? Or that, right? Just,
that is what it is. You do the same thing with Boardwalk Empire and like other shows. Like I'm not going to watch the final season.
Well, although Harry Potter, I read all the books, so I know what the end is. Something happened. That came out in 2010. I was in 2011, the Harry Potter movies, and I was broke in Chicago, so I wasn't really going to the movie theater much. I was out in the town, the gritty town of Chicago.
Man, listen, I was so broke, like when I first got to LA and I didn't have a job and all that. Like I didn't see the movies. I didn't go to the movies for months and months and months because I was like, because the movies were expensive. They were like $17, and I was from the Midwest. For like, you go to the movies for like $6.
Yeah,
and it's like $17, like $16.75. So I stopped going to the movies when I first moved here. I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, that was shocking for me because it wasn't 6 by the time I left Atlanta, but it was 10. And like to go even from 10 to 17 is just like, what?
It's
It's a
insane,
baseball game.
right?
I was definitely, don't arrest me, whoever's watching, but I was definitely going to see one and I would go
Walking to
see
the other.
Oh
another.
man, yeah, I was doing that.
Hey,
I-
I worked at a movie theater before, so
He was letting people in the back door.
You know, I got caught. I got caught once watching a movie on the clock.
I know that would probably be something I would do working at a movie theater.
Man, I used to watch movies on the clock in the most egregious ways.
I used to work
I would punch in early, start watching a movie, and then when the movie ended, my shift would start. And I would just get paid for watching the movie.
That's cool.
Egregious.
I'm so old. We had $1.50 movie theaters, and like 6 months after a movie came out, all of a sudden there'd be like a movie theater with 2 theaters or 1 theater. You would go to this place. There was one in Philly called the Devon Theater. It was an old theater, and I saw Home Alone for like $1.50, like 6-8 months after it came out.
Yeah.
And that was a thing, like that. You know, they would release them way later. They were already on pay-per-view at that point, or whatever.
Yeah, you still get that experience.
Yeah.
In Alabama, there was a place like that in Birmingham that it was $1, maybe $3, right before I left.
I think there's still a dollar show in the Valley.
Yeah,
I think it's like $1.50 or $1.75 or something.
It went up before the pandemic. It went up to like $3, but
was that for $3?
hasn't opened back up since the pandemic. Like there's some further out, but there was a NoHo one, a North Hollywood one, and I loved it there. But that
was my first movie in LA. I went to go see X-Men First Class because I was like, this movie's $1.75, or I can afford it.
I had an idea for for a way to connect movies with people, if they got some of the actors or some of the people that worked on the crews or whatever, and had like 2 people, let's say, come back to a showing of the movie, and you go watch the movie, and then afterwards you listen to like, you know, a guy that might have done the lighting and maybe like a secondary actor, and they answer questions throughout and things like that. I feel like that'd be a huge draw into theaters for people that were really into certain movies.
Well, me and Dino went to a movie like that once. We just went to go see the movie Regular, and then all of a sudden the guy it's called My Friend Dahmer, about Jeffrey Dahmer. The lead actor just showed up. He goes, "Hey, I was just watching the movie. I want to talk to you guys. Can I talk to you guys?" And he sat there and he like talked to us about the role. We didn't even ask for it. I'm not even sure we wanted it, but he did.
But you got it.
Did you get a picture, or he was like,
it's like, can we leave or do we have to sit here? Do you remember that, Dino?
I did that for the Silver Linings Playbook at the DGA. Bradley Cooper was there, the director, the editor.
Yeah, but I went to that too. But we knew they were going to be there because it was on the thing that they were going to be there.
This was just at one of the. I don't remember. We talked to him. I don't remember talking to him. I remember him and the director or the writer were there.
We didn't talk to him.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But he gave like a talk back, right?
Yeah, he gave a talk back. Like no one told us the talk back was happening. He was just there.
The way you explained it sounded like, because we were doing the movie passenger thing. So the way you said it sounded like he came up to us while we were filming to talk to us, and I was like, I don't remember that at all. I remember seeing the movie, and then because it was Lamech. Is that what the theater?
Lamely Family Theater.
Yeah. It's at one of those places, and where they would show more indie movies and foreign movies and stuff like that, and yeah, so that they had a little talk back, and it was super interesting. It was a good movie. It didn't get the hype as the TV show did,
but to my point, sometimes in LA they do that, Chris. Like that's like a thing that sort of happens.
And local people that happen to be attached to movies and then play the movie so that people can have an experience that's different.
I totally dig that.
Another guy that looked familiar, but I can't put my finger on where I've seen him from, is the guy who played Plank, Steve Sweeney. I don't know if he just looks like Post Malone to me, or I've actually seen him.
I'm glad you brought up Post Malone, because boy, does he look like Post Malone.
He looks like Post Malone on crack, and that's saying something.
That's funny.
I think Post Malone must have gotten started with the face tattoos because they're like, "Hey, Plank!" He's like, "Still call me Plank, guys. You look just like him." Well, now I got face tattoos. Now I look different.
And
That
he
might
just
be
got
the best casting of the whole movie, though, man. That guy's his voice and everything for the role that he played. That guy was annoying from the go, from jump.
Yeah, the skeevy guy, right? That's
Yep.
like we need a skeevy guy. Yeah, I don't know what he's been in before, but if I were Post Malone, he's in the greatest beer run ever. I don't know. Did you see that recently? That's the one that he was in this past year.
Really? I wonder if he looks anything like what he looks like in this film.
Mm.
But either way, with $1 million, they couldn't have been paying any of these guys anything. With $1.35 million. I mean, with inflation, that's like $100 million nowadays. But back then, $1.35 million, that's nothing. I can't even believe he got it made for that with all the editing and everything that was done in this film.
I imagine
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, this movie was non-union.
Right. Yeah. But the majority, I would imagine so, if it's just in the UK and somewhere in wherever it was
completely 100% independent.
I think so. I imagine the majority of the money probably went for the music, right?
Oh, to get those rights. Yeah, maybe.
100%. That's why he put James Brown twice. He's like, he got that 2 for 1.
Yeah. And, I mean, if he's in the music business beforehand, Guy Ritchie, maybe that's where he knew Sting and was like, hey, I got this script. And was like, oh, yeah, I'll be in it. I think for that, maybe he wanted a bigger role in Sting. Maybe I might be making this shit up. But
you completely analyzed the scenario.
Hey, Jason, bring out Lockstock, my DVD. Let's watch the audio commentary bit.
Oh, you have the featurettes?
Yeah.
Dude, so there is a British television show called Lockstock that came out after this, completely different characters. I've never seen it. It's like an 8 to 10 episode season. Only lasted one season. I don't know if that was attached to it or not. But they did do something after it. And dude, we do have to talk about a tiny bit. That Big Chris character might have been the best character. We didn't really delve into him at all. That's Vinnie Jones. He's actually a former professional soccer player that has like a reputation for being a bruiser. But so many lines in the movie, like that guy is the morality of the movie for me. Like he's always like doing the right thing while doing it. And another scene the part with the tanning bed, where he's slamming the dude's face in the tanning bed and he's like, by the time this tan fades. But the scene at the end where he rams the car into the other car because the guy has the knife to his kid's throat. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah.
Did you guys read what he was saying when he was slamming the guy's head into the door?
No, what was the?
So I popped on the commentary or the subtitles, and all he's like, I would be thinking that he'd be screaming about like, you're going to kill my kid. You're going to threaten my kid. He's like, you are the rudest person I have ever met in my entire life. Nobody talks to me as rude as you're. And I was like, that's what the dialogue was there. And he's slamming his head into a door.
I thought it was about the kid also. Like,
no, it wasn't. No, if you subtitle it, man, it was crazy.
And does he not cuss at all in the movie? I know because he got to,
yells at his son when his son does. Remember?
And the guy in the tanning bed, right? Like,
right.
Like watch your mouth type of thing. So maybe, and he's also the great character in Snatch. Like
he's awesome.
Talking about like the desert, it's like gun, they have a prop gun, and he's like, mine says Desert Eagle. Yep. He's infamous as a soccer player, and then there's this. It wasn't caught on like camera in the game, but there's pictures of it where he's standing in front of a guy and just grabs the guy's nuts. And the picture that like somebody caught it like on camera, and he's just like freaking squeezing them, and the guy behind him is just like, and it's one of the best pictures out there in like soccer of just like what, and they've interviewed him about all that, and I mean he's great. He's crazy.
Imagine having a reputation for being a guy who like squeezes
all grabber.
Just like watch out for that guy because as soon as he gets a chance, he's gonna try to squeeze your nuts, bro. Gotta watch out.
I don't know what
But
type of website
It's
y'all
like in
be
the
on.
scouting report.
that was even, and you know why I know? Because it was like VHS of like sports bloopers and this and that, and we got one, and it was about soccer bloopers and whatever. And the cover of the VHS tape is that picture, is a Vinny like grabbing,
That's funny.
and yeah,
You were like, so this is football.
football, balls to the walls. Yeah, there's only what, three women characters: the stripper, the couch potato, and the dealer, the old lady.
Yeah.
The stripper was my favorite of the three female characters.
Had the most screen time, if we're completely honest.
What was the couch potato's name again?
Gloria.
Gloria?
Yeah,
Okay.
Gloria.
Gloria, Gloria.
I didn't know what her purpose was going to be because she was always so dazed and confused. So it was super
Grandma
cool.
machine gun.
Yeah.
That's great.
They also did a Snatch TV show, but that was in like 2017.
I don't know that this genre or this movie in general really lends itself well to a TV show being done well. Like, I don't know that you would have to. Do you use some of the same storyline, or using the same characters? Does it just exist in the same world? I never saw the show, but I think it would be difficult to try and use the same storyline.
Well,
right?
it was Sony Crackle production. Crackle, where comedians in cars getting coffee. And it had another Harry Potter connection. Rupert, what's his last name?
Grint.
Yeah, he's the main guy in the Snatch. But they did that. Oh, you know what's the other movie? Get Shorty, right? Like those.
Oh, Travolta.
Yeah, that kind of movies are kind of in line of they have the gags. They have like usually bad guys that screw up or stuff like that. Which they also had a Get Shorty TV show, which was pretty decent actually. Chris O'Dowd, and Everybody Loves Raymond were in it. So they were starting to do shows of these like mobster movies. Like this worked back in the early 2000s.
Let's try and bring it back.
Let's make a TV show. Because
I have a quick question for y'all. Would you have named this movie the name of the movie, or would you have named it differently?
I have no idea what the title means. I tried to figure out, I guess, the four guys and what they're capable of or whatever, but absolutely not. I would have named it.
I believe Lock, Stock is a reference to like everything, like everything is included in what we're talking about. So if I say Lock, Stock, it means everything, it's a reference to that.
They say it in the movie, but it's so quick. I don't know if they one of the characters says that we got to be lock, stock, like
like totally on point.
I would have named it Ocean's 12. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
That's another mobster movie where they this Ocean's 12 at least, right? That's the one where they owe money back.
I thought about that as being something that might have had influence, but it just wasn't. I did think about it, but I thought about how Ocean's 11 wasn't like that. But the one where they have to go, and then the whole time another villain is also plotting. Like they owe the guy money, but he's hired by another thief that is trying to impress yet another thief that loves George Clooney's character. Like it was a lot going on there, and like the plot twist. Because that was 12, right? 12, they go to another country, and then Matt Damon's mom works for the CIA or whatever. Like it was a lot. It was a lot of twists and all that. Yeah.
13 is when they go back and it's like Al Pacino again. 12 is the one when they go to like France or something with the wolf guy.
That definitely reminds me of the concept, and especially it's in Europe too. Like just because, yeah.
So what's about what would you name it? What's funny sometimes is seeing what the names are in other countries, right? Or in Spanish. In Spanish, juegos, trampas y dos armas humeantes, which is games and tricks, games, tricks, and two smoking guns, right? Like lock, stock. That phrase is not anything in Spanish, so it's like games and tricks and two smoking barrels, right? Because they do show the smoking barrels multiple times. Like the shotgun is smoking when the dude is dead, and then so is the then blowing the smoke through the shotgun shaft as well. So
Maybe Two Smoking Barrels would be a good name too, because it was a lot about that. Like, I don't know.
do you want it shorter? Because then he went and there were maybe that's what the studio, maybe Hollywood like, hey we'll give you 20 times the budget. No, 20 times if it was only 1 point something. We'll give you 50 times the budget that you had for Lock, Stock, but make it one word. Just make it a one-word title. Okay, Snatch.
Yeah, he was like, I'll make it sound like a terrible porno.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
I mean, but if he's putting this movie out as sort of a first foray, I mean, what did you say it did at the box office?
28.
28. I wonder if this thing was like, if it's completely independently produced, I wonder did it like play at film festivals and stuff first before it found like a buyer or something?
Maybe, but also I also imagine it made a shit ton in DVD sales or like this is one of those where I feel like then people in college or where did you see it in the theaters? Had you said that, or did you just see it?
Well, when it came on, I think it said Focus Features, didn't it?
Yeah.
So somebody bought it from them at least to distribute it.
You know what it reminds me of? Boondock Saints. Did you guys ever see that?
Yeah.
So that to me is kind of like this in some way, like at least like a movie that I didn't really hear about when it came out, but then once it came to DVD, that's when, you know what I mean? Like everybody loved it. And it kind of is in the same ilk as this movie as far, not exactly, but that's also kind of a comedy crime movie, you know?
Yeah.
So I almost thought that the lead character in this was one of the guys in that when I first saw that. When I first saw Boondock Saints, I thought he looked a lot like the guys from that movie.
Yeah, I feel like that's all part of the genre that Tarantino created.
Right.
Whatever that genre is, that Tarantino genre, this is, and that is, all those movies are that. Whatever like that genre is.
Movies for guys who like movies. Remember that? That was like that thing back in the day, you know, like that was like an actual thing that was once a week. There was something on FX and it was like movies for guys who like movies.
Yeah, I remember that.
Here comes, you know, Charles Bronson movies. And
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you guys want to explore?
I don't know. I don't think so. Oh, yeah. So the Lenny McLean, the Barry the Baptist, passed away a month before the movie came out. Cancer. So,
way to make me sad again.
Yeah.
Hey, I thought he was in more movies. That's so. Watching this because he reuses Guy Ritchie uses some of the same people and kind of like Tarantino and you know in various of their films. So watching him, I was like, oh yeah, he's been in a bunch of movies. Like he's got that face, he's got the voice, and then it's like, oh no, crap, he's only in 6 things, but he's such a character, such a presence on film that it just seems like, oh yeah, he's got to be in every British mobster film, right, of like the 90s. But
it's kind of like what happened with Chuck Zito. You guys know who Chuck Zito is? Chuck Zito was like a bouncer, a mafia type guy, and then he ended up on like the TV show Oz and a bunch of other shows as like a tough guy all the time. He always played a tough guy in different movies. And Mr. T.
When did he die?
Like Mr. T started off as like a Hollywood bodyguard, and then he started getting into movies. You know, like Mr. T is not like wasn't an actor to begin with.
We're bumming Marina out. No one has died in real life, Marina. Everyone's
Dave Bautista from Guardians of the Galaxy.
He's a wrestler, right?
He was a bouncer first.
No,
Yeah.
I can see
Oh
that.
yeah, I heard him in an interview talking about that. He used to be also did security for some big movie star.
I can see him
This-
grabbing
Yeah.
my ID.
Well, wasn't
He
that
did private
similar with?
security for like somebody, like maybe even somebody like Robert Downey Jr. or somebody.
Didn't
Wow,
Terry
that would
Crews?
be funny. So I want to act.
Didn't
No.
Terry Crews do the same kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. Terry Crews
Do
did some kind of a security slash.
yeah, security bodyguard, and then was just like as an extra, and little by little got
No,
pretty
but
How
I
much he
think
good.
worked?
I think he was also a gym trainer.
Could be, yeah.
I'm gonna start working
Jason?
out, get in Hollywood by defending.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
I mean,
I heard a
the
story
little
once.
trivia, huh?
I was gonna say I heard a story once that Terry Crews, he did extra work on a commercial that Steve Harvey was on, and then like later on they met again, and it was like, oh, you remember me from that set? Like, I guess he gave him like advice and stuff while they were on that set.
Yeah.
But that's what Steve Harvey does, though.
I was gonna say he's like Mr. Motivation. Like Steve Harvey's like, you gotta follow your dreams. Look at me.
Yeah,
I know.
every time they take a commercial on Family Feud, he's giving like a 30-minute speech.
I have mixed feelings on Mr. Steve Harvey, but yes, he does have his motivating moments.
All right. Well, anything else in your?
Nope. Let's pull it in. Let's go into final thoughts. Take it away, Marina.
Ooh. So I really liked how it all came together in the end of the movie. I don't know, and I could correct me if I'm wrong. I would have liked for the guys to have found out that they'd gotten cheated. Like, I don't know if that ever came back up. Do you guys know? No, right? Like
It didn't
whenever,
come up. It didn't come up.
yeah, and I was like, man, like all that work. It would have been nice to know that, like, because maybe it made him feel defeated that he wasn't as good as the cards as he usually is. So it would have been kind of cool if, like, he'd found out that they were like recording the game. But overall, I think it was really well written. Sometimes it's really hard to connect that many pieces together for it to all make sense in the end. And I think they did a really good job with that. I would recommend this movie to people who like con movies or movies about getting back what you've lost. Like people, if we're talking about like an Ocean's 12, or we're talking about movies where it was a lot going on, I'd be like, oh, I know this European film. It always sounds cool when it's like a foreign film that you should watch. I would recommend it to people like that.
Right on.
Noise.
Anybody who can understand Cockney, right? El Dondino, what do you got for us?
All right. Yeah, watching it just reminds me what a classic it is, and it's good. It holds up. I think Jason was saying that in his initial thoughts, even. And yeah, it's a movie I wouldn't at some point watch again. It's one of those that maybe every 5 or 10 years or something like that, it might be like, oh, or it could even be one of those if you're flipping through a channel and you see like it's on, it might just be like, oh, let me land on here for a minute, right? Because it's like, oh, I want to see that Jerry curl, or I want to see those tiny guns, or like there's so many moments that even watching it after so many years, it's like, oh wow, I knew this movie inside and out, but to still get surprised from little moments that I hadn't remembered or felt like I noticed the first 10 times I've seen this movie before, really says something about it. So, really enjoyed it. I would recommend it, yeah, to people that Tarantino comes up, or Boondock Saints come up, or any of those kind of movies, right? Kind of like, you should check this out, right? But going to what Marina said about like feeling cheated, that's I think what makes it such a good movie, because in like this and in something like Snatch and in other movies, it's like there are characters that are maybe in one scene and not in Snatch or whatever, but it's like, oh, did they really kill that guy? Like, oh, I wanted to see, like, oh, I want want to see more of that character. I want to see more of, like that really says something about the writing or just the filmmaking where some of these characters we've only seen for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but it's just so well written that you do feel cheated. Like, but he was playing, he was winning, and he got screwed over. So, yeah, I recommend it to whenever it comes up as possible movies, whether dealing with crime and comedy, Tarantino, that I'll recommend this movie for sure.
Yeah, right on.
Jason?
All right. Well, yeah, I'll jump in. So I love this movie. I think it's a great movie. Will I watch it again? Absolutely. Um, this is one of the movies that I can return to a lot, actually, because it's also, I guess at the time it came out, it also felt very different. I mean, there's a lot of movies with like British sort of themes and like more British like influence over here than there was back then. Finding that kind of thing wasn't really easy, like in the early 2000s, unless you knew what you were looking for. But this is kind of one that sort of crossed over. It had crossover appeal. I would recommend it to anyone who wanted to see a gangster movie or something, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, a wild ride, because this movie is all over the place and you're going to have to pay attention a little bit to follow it. But it's also very slick and it's very cool. It just feels like a cool film. Like you sort of, I don't know. I wouldn't say you want to be one of the characters in this movie, but it's so full of characters. There's just a lot to look at, and the weird Cockney accents, and it feels like a different world that you're just sort of being privy to be in for a little bit, almost like flying the wall status. It's really dope. So yeah, I would recommend it to people who want to see stuff like that.
Steve?
Final thoughts. This is a movie that honestly, deep down inside, especially after the first close to half, not necessarily half, but close to half of the movie, I wanted to hate, but I couldn't because it's a really good movie. There's so many moments, and like if you pay attention to the environment, there's so many things that make it even more lively. So definitely, it's like one of those movies that has replay value because you miss so many things. Um, like one of the things that I just remember was when the guy with the Jerry curl was like burning the old people's like feet.
Toes, yeah.
Like that was hilarious. Where's the money? Like that was hilarious. And
And apparently
and
he
like,
did that a bunch because the guy was like, "Why do you keep burning people's feet?" That's like Home Alone shit of the wet bandits. Like, oh, this is our call card.
yeah. And basically when the other guy was going to the black guy and always breaking his table, that was
Yep.
also funny. Uh, and also if you notice, like he had couches with the plastic on. Uh,
Oh,
that was like a little detail that I noticed too when he was like walking and giving his speech. I was like, wow, the couches got plastic on. So there's like a lot of little details that I really like. Like I mentioned in my first impression, even the lighting is really good. There's a lot of shadow work, like Jason was saying here, and yeah, and it's very satisfying. Like that part where like so many people are like dying, and it's like a domino effect, kinda. It's like it's super cool. I enjoy when movies have like twists and turns like that. That's why I got into. I'm not really into like horror movies, but I'm into psychological thrillers, and I got really into Saw at one point because of that, or like twists and turns, and I like that type of stuff. So overall, I would recommend it to people that first have never seen this movie because it's like a great, like, oh my god, like this is a good find, and um, and also people in general that enjoy like psychological thrillers, I would say, like twists and turns, and they don't mind a little humor in it as well.
Noise.
Noise.
For me, this is definitely something where there's a lot of movies like The Italian Job. We've named a whole bunch of movies, and I just feel like this one is totally different. That's what I love about it. I purposefully, every 8-10 years, watch this movie. You know, it's something my brother and I reference often and make jokes about. It is a bro movie. You know, your friend that has certain movies on DVDs on their shelf has like Lock, Stock, and, you know, the Boondock Saints. They have a whole row of those types of movies, easily recommended to people that are into that style. I like to also point out that this is a bookend to our curse words March Madness theme. This had a decent amount of curses. As soon as I heard that we were going to do something on movies with intent, you know, a lot of cursing, I was like, boom, this is going to be the movie I'm going to bring out because I'd love to talk about it. But it is something that I purposely myself revisit at times because I really enjoyed it. And then after a few weeks later, I usually watch Snatch. So again, I would recommend it to anybody that enjoys that film. Good, you know.
Yeah, you do want to watch Snatch right after this, don't you?
Yeah, it definitely has like
you want to stay in that world a little bit longer.
Yeah, and to be honest, man, I agree with the voyeur aspect. Like, I want to watch this world, like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, but I don't want to live in this world by any means whatsoever.
Yeah,
you guys are such guys. I'm like, I don't need to watch Snatch. I don't know. This was good. Like, if you like, I watched this. I'm cool, but
I would just like to point out the last 2 out of the last 3 movies I picked had the last other one was Cool Hand Luke. There was like no women in that either. Next movie we're watching with me, man, is going to be like Josie and the Pussycats or something like that. I owe the ladies, man, big time. Jason, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Chris. I do actually have a question. I was wondering, Steve, what do you got for us next week?
Next week, I don't know why you asked me if you very well know that you are next, Jason.
Oh, okay. Well, then, if that's the case, I'm excited that our bracket is over and we're going to move just to open form. I thought about, like, maybe we should do a, like another theme, but I said, no, we're going to do a movie. It's summertime. So I wanted to do a movie about the summer, or at least I think it is. It's been on my to-do list for like years and years and years, like maybe over a decade. And it's the 1953 Ingrid Bergman classic, Summers with Monica. So you can find this as a Criterion film. You can find it on like your Criterion channels or on the Canopy app, I believe. It's an Ingrid Bergman film. And it won't be my first Ingrid Bergman, but I'll be excited to see this with you guys. The video box has always intrigued me. I have no clue what it's about.
Me neither.
But it's Ingrid Bergman, and I have never seen a bad Bergman movie.
Absolutely.
And there's women.
There looks to be at least Monica.
I can tell you that at least it's not winter with Karen.
Yeah, Summers with Monica sounds like a much better season to have with a lady person.
There you go. So for El Dondino, Marina, El Professor, Jason Echo, the me, Steve Dash, we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.